From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined, as always, with our super producer, Dylan, the Tennessee pal Fagin. Most importantly, you are you. You are, hopefully, here, which makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. If you are joining us for our strange news program, welcome to, get this, guys, the very last day of June 2025. It's June 30th when this publishes. So knowing that we are recording on the 25th, how do you guys see the next week going?
It's a dice roll.
Yeah, roll the dice, huh? We had a fascinating conversation just before we rolled today regarding a bit of controversy with the hot ones. And we're not referring to whatever you think other than the show.
Fissile material. We're not referring to that.
Oh, wow. That's really good. Yeah. We were talking off air about the Ron. We were talking about the show Hot Ones. How would we describe the show Hot Ones?
Weaponized hot sauces for interview photo op situation. Yes.
It's an interview show where people eat increasingly spicy or hot wings while they are answering questions, right? And the interviewer is very good.
It's a brilliant concept too. I mean, It really does disarm you, and then it says a lot about a person how they're able to proceed when under duress to that degree.
I like that. Now, Matt, let's go to you because you hipped us to the controversy. What's going on with the hottest of ones?
Oh, well, guys, I did that thing where you watch a YouTube video where there's actually a group of human beings doing some real research. And they tested all of the hot ones sauces at the time when the video came out. And they found that the Scoville units measured on the scale as you go up, because the concept of the show is they get spicier as you go. So the capsaicin levels will be higher each sauce you try next. And according to the findings of this one independent study, the capsaicin levels in the two sauces after Da Bomb are nowhere near as high as Da Bomb Beyond Insanity. So it's just a little bit strange to imagine the last dabbing thing happening right at the end. Maybe they should put Da Bomb as the final sauce. That's what I would recommend.
The bomb is the one that people are always like about to puke after trying it. Everyone describes it as being the most disgusting thing they've ever tasted. I just don't understand.
I don't know. I'm halfway through my bottle of it, and I still love it.
Yeah, what do you put it on?
Everything. Okay. Literally everything.
Well, I'm glad to know you're not just like pouring it in a shot glass and then popping it raw.
The taste alone is not great, but I think you will find if you put it together with other things,
right,
and just a little bit, it does something exciting.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of exciting, with that breaking news, we are going to have a bit of a grab bag exploration here. Please check out our earlier conversation about shadow diplomacy, which unfortunately just becomes more and more timely as the days progress. We're going to talk about microdrones. We're going to get into some Pharaoh's curses, extinction crises, mysterious antibody science. We're going to talk about cannibalism. We're going to talk about an alligator Alcatraz and space and probability science. Lightning strike me again. And then, of course, cannibals. But before we do any of that, let's say we take a quick break for a word from our sponsors and then go check our own internal Scoville units. You guys feeling hot?
Always. And bothered.
And we have returned. We had a Folks, we're going to be honest with you. We're recording in the southeast of the United States. I think all of us are based in that area right now as we record this strange news. And it is just disgusting outside. It's like walking in hot soup. There's a heat advisory, not just here, but throughout a lot of the East Coast. And the states involved there, including Massachusetts. For a lot of people in certain parts of the world, the summer means mosquitoes, right? Yeah. The summer means bugs. And get this, the newest news coming out of China shows us that you can't even trust the skeeters at this point. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but a military robotics lab in China has created what they call microdrones. And from far enough away, they look like your regular annoying mosquitoes.
It's more sci-fi stuff, y'all, coming into being.
I'm so angry. The birds, they came for us first with the birds, right? No, or was it cats a long time ago? I can't remember on Ridiculous
Cats,
History.
Bats. The cat operation was unsuccessful. The bat thing was a little bit too successful.
Dolphins with freaking lasers strapped to their heads.
But in both those cases that we're mentioning here, those were what we could consider weaponized or cybernetic organisms. And Matt, what I think you're talking about there is the use of things that look like birds, but yes, are not in fact birds. And,
if you say so.
Yeah. And you nailed it there with the idea of things that look like mosquitoes, but are in fact surveillance devices.
Dude, Ben, I am looking at a picture that you shared in the link here of this thing. It's hard to imagine a camera capable of transmitting information being that size with wings.
Right. Yeah, man. The convenient phrase now in English is microdrone. This was developed at the National University of Defense Technology, or NUTted. No, seriously, that's the acronym.
I believe you.
We're adults.
Or is it NUD?
Either one is hilarious. You know what I mean? 1010.
The D is silent. Yes.
Yeah. 1010 UOD. No notes. We love your language here. As we were saying, this is barely visible to the naked eye. This is one of the long-standing dreams of tradecraft. We also have to realize that the nation of China went public with this, right? Uncle Xi approved of this being reported to the world, which means one of two things. Not mutually exclusive, but it means one of two things. One, this is propaganda, agitprop meant to frighten people. Or two, this has already been out in the wild for a minute.
Literally. Yeah, and these little guys do video?
Video, yes. Video yeah. And audio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they are so tiny. They're increasingly common in various fields of interest, we could say. And the applications probably funded by military money. The applications are not solely for war fighting and not solely for tradecraft. Imagine how cool it would be if you are a documentarian, right? Or you're a James Cameron type and you want to fly your little guy into a place where it's not safe for humans to film, or where it's too small to get ordinary equipment in. Like you can't fit your Red camera in there. I'm afraid to touch a Red camera because they're so expensive. You know what I mean?
I'm sure these little guys are too, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I imagine so, until the economy of scale kicks in. On a positive note, this also helps with disaster relief, right? You can, let's say a building collapses, let's say an earthquake or an avalanche occurs. You can fly these little skeeter boys into tightly confined spaces. You can detect hazardous objects. We're not too far away from putting a series of radiation sensing instruments on there. You know what I mean?
One thing I thought was interesting in terms of the disaster stuff, I've been dealing with this disaster fallout stuff with this house that I own in a city where it was ravaged by Hurricane Helene. And one of the companies that went in and kind of did some of the recon and dealt with all of the contents of the house, they actually sent me sort of more or less an augmented reality map of every single room that you can zoom through like on Google Earth. So I would imagine the recon possibilities with these things would be very similar, where you could actually fly them in and then create some kind of facsimile of the actual location for mapping purposes and all of that stuff. Like the little orbs in Prometheus, they would throw out and shoot out the lasers and all of that. But,
Yeah, the problems are similar to other engineering design issues for any electrically powered device. It's the weight of the battery. You haven't thought about the weight, says Dennis Reynolds.
That is the limiting factor in a lot of tech, isn't it?
But I have a clear image in my head of someone making a delivery, right? And just someone lugging a bunch of boxes into, it's not the secured area, but it's a secured facility. Does that make sense? It's not like the super sensitive place.
Skiff, but it's the building in which the skiff is housed.
And you're just making a delivery, and it just looks like a bug flew in with the delivery driver. And that's it. And now it's inside, and it will transmit until the battery dies. Because how in the hell do you charge one of those things? Where's the USB go?
So this is my proposal. First off, you can learn more about this strange news in places like the South China Morning Post or The Week. The Week should be free to read online. This came out in English a few days ago, but I think everybody knew it was in the wind. Here is the proposal I have, and I'm going to turn this into a pitch meeting and want to hear from you guys. First off, all technology as it progresses becomes closer and closer to biological organisms, the stuff that evolution figured out long, long ago. With that in mind, here's the pitch. What if we can beat the battery weight problem by somehow creating a device for the microdrone Mosquito Terminator thing to extract power from humans? What if we can teach it to bite? Not to kill.
We
not
become
to poison.
batteries like in the Matrix.
Yeah. What if it can somehow siphon electric activity from a nearby human and do it fast enough to not get swatted? That's another issue.
I do also wonder, like, I'm not a scientist in any capacity, but I do wonder how far things like wireless charging technology will evolve. I'm still kind of blown away that you can just set your phone down on a thing and it charges it sort of, directly by osmosis. I imagine there could be advances in that where perhaps a device like this could pull that kind of charge out of the air, like from nearby electronics. I just wonder.
Ben, I love your idea, and it's terrifying, and it creates such imagery in my mind. What if you did the thing you're talking about with humans, but with any electrical cable? So it's got some kind of device in it where it can land on an electrical cable, and it would have to puncture just in enough to where it wouldn't send all of the voltage through the thing, or it'd have to have some kind of device that makes the voltage, when it steps it down to the correct thing. So it doesn't, I can't use the words because I don't know them.
That's a much smarter escalation of my silly idea.
But just imagine.
That's what mosquitoes do.
And that's it.
Yeah. And that's honestly a smarter, more sustainable idea to give a universal energy input concept. And I love what you're saying, Noel, about wireless transmission of energy. the reason they would want it to be able to bite humans also would be delivery of substances.
I
And
didn't even think about that.
that's where you get into a little bit more of offensive type of trade craft, right? A little more operational instead of surveillance. Look, what we're telling you folks is that everything is fine. Everything is just dandy. 2025. Beat me here, Dylan. No notes from us. Great job, humanity. I do have one more story that I'd like to share. Oh, well, we talked about this earlier. Noel, just a side note. There is an extinction crisis. About recent study shows that about 500 separate species of birds are going to vanish within a century.
Well, and Ben, you pitched this story to me as something that I would rejoice in, and I do want to just make it clear that I have adjusted my stance on birds because of the board game Wingspan. I've said that before, but they just added an expansion pack, Birds of East Asia, and I know so many different species of birds now, and I bet you some of these that you're talking about are featured in the game, and I would be very sad to see them go. So I'm a new man when it comes to appreciation of birds.
I'm so happy to hear that. And
I mean, I still don't want them coming at me. If they fly up in my face, all bets are off. But I appreciate their existence.
Yeah, and Matt, Dylan, and I have been with you on this journey, and we're real proud of you, man.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Animals are amazing. They're not as amazing as fungus. This is where we get to the Pharaoh's curse. I think we're all armchair fans of Egyptology, as it's called in English. Did we ever do an episode on the curse of King Tut?
We did a video.
And
then we did one about the other pyramids, but I'm not seeing anything about the Tutankhamun's curse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, here's the breaking news. Dylan, thank you for the sound cue there. The closest thing we can come to a provable, verifiable support for the legend of King Tut's curse. It's the idea that if you violate the sanctity of the tomb or the burial place, then you will die in horrific Final Destination-esque ways. And as time wended on, the tale played telephone, right? And it became increasingly elaborate. It felt like some producers were hopping in and giving notes. The closest thing we can say to the reality of this, if reality exists to the story, is there may have been a fungus. There may have been one of the most inexplicable kind of living things in human experience that really screwed up people's days. It's called Aspergillus flavus. Yeah, Aspergillus flavus. And its street name is the Pharaoh's curse fungus. Have you guys heard about this?
I have not.
No, this is brand new to me.
This is, I feel like outside of a few mycologists, I feel like most specific types of fungi are I just like calling them fungi. I think most specific types of fungi are unknown to people, right? So if you're out in the woods and you're just trying to freestyle on some foraging, don't pick up a thing you don't recognize. Don't even touch it, honestly. The good news is that this humble Aspergillus flavus has apparently been used to create a new compound that can fight cancer, specifically leukemia. Amazing. So, maybe the Pharaoh cursed us and then said, you know what, though? I'll help you out a little bit on the back end.
The curse became a blessing. How about that? That's cool. Is there any further info about that? Like, are they still testing it? Obviously, this isn't something that's being rolled out in any kind of scale. And what are some of the features of it, like in terms of how it could potentially be harnessed?
Yeah, excellent questions. So you can read the study in detail. It just came out on June 23rd in the scientific journal Nature Chemical Biology. Admittedly, it sounds like they just threw 3 words together for the title. but it's not a journal about writing titles. It's a journal about STEM. And in this, they point out that fungi gave us penicillin, right? They point out that many life-changing medicines can be derived from natural products. And there's an entire unknown world out there. This thing is not that uncommon as well. Like to your point, Noel, it is found in soil. It can infect a broad range of crops. If you get hit with a dose of this just in the field, it can lead to lung infections. Yeah, it's named Aspergillus flavus because it's been considered a sort of, what's the phrase, microbial supervillain for like a little more than a century.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, black mold is Aspergillus, or that is a term associated with black mold, which of course can cause lung infections. Well, I only know this because I recently watched a King of the Hill episode where Hank got some black mold in his house, and it was a real hullabaloo.
A real hullabaloo indeed. So it's 2025. The mosquitoes are spies. The Pharaoh curse ended up being a good thing overall. We've got more to get to, so we're going to pause for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more strange news.
And we've returned. Guys, as I mentioned before on the show, I recently took a trip out to a coastal area of South Carolina and encountered many a gator. I actually saw alligators and like 5-foot alligators. That's not even the big boys, but still, when you behold an alligator that is, almost as tall as you are, long, of course, laying on the ground, it's a thing. It does a thing to the human body where there's fascination. If you like animals, it's that thing where we were just talking about birds, where you go, oh, cool. But the other thing that happens is you kind of imagine if you had to get in the scrape with one of those things. And, if you're a little bit off the beaten path like we are, you may have done a little reading on what happens if you have to fight an alligator.
PvP, right?
Well, I mean, all these things at least ran through my mind in those moments. And this morning, when I was looking through the news, a random little thing jumped out at me that I think we're all going to be fascinated by, because of, you just have to imagine the people that thought this thought and then decided to make it a thing. Here's the thought, and it comes to us from BBC News. Florida, as in the state of Florida in the United States, building Alligator Alcatraz, migrant detention center in the Everglades.
Okay.
For humans.
For humans, yes. It's not for alligators. The alligators are just hanging out in the Everglades which is a swampy marshland area that is very large in Florida, Georgia, a couple areas down there. And the concept of building a detention center in the center of that area as a way to deter people from wanting to escape, or I guess theoretically putting the fear of escape into people's minds.
Wait, this is literally like an alligator-filled moat situation?
It's not. Well, I mean, the environment itself in the Everglades is a giant alligator-filled moat.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and
true.
It's also, I think, to that point about weaponized psychology, right? It's leveraging the primal mammalian fear of the alligator, which most mammals, aside from the capybara, have. It's very intense. The capybara,
I've seen that.
They'll just stroll up. I don't know why this anime creature exists in the real world. It's confusing. But other than capybara, the human beings who deserve all the dignity and rights of any other living human being, they're not going to run. That's one of the issues, right? Like, if you... Am I okay in assuming, Matt and Noel, that most people have not tussled with an alligator?
I would say so.
Yeah, I certainly have not. And I would not unless I absolutely had to.
They don't even taste that great. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I've tried a few. Tough chicken, maybe, is the way to describe it.
Yeah.
Gamey chicken.
So why did they pick the Everglades? Is this like a funding government largesse thing, or is this politically motivated, or all of the above?
Well, it's going to be funded, quote, in large part, unquote, by the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Shelter and Services Program, which previously was used to provide accommodation and other aid for undocumented migrant human beings that were coming through the United States. And that is according to Kristi Noem, the current Department of Homeland Security Secretary. It is now going to be used to temporarily hold migrants, in this place that was once an airstrip. It was called the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport. It's about 36 miles from Miami, and it's going to cost around $450 million to run this detention center.
Per year?
Yes, on a yearly basis.
Oh, great. But it's temporary, like you said.
Yeah. It's just temporary. It's fine. And the ICE agents who are out there rounding people up, wearing masks over their face to hide their identities, they know they're doing the right thing. He said,
doing a thumbs up
sarcastically. Anyway, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm if you take it out of context, or if it's translated, into another language, you have to understand I'm being sarcastic.
We are collectively being sarcastic because ICE is provably and clearly violating the understood rule of law and due process here in the United States. That is not a political take. That is not an opinion. That is a fact. So as you can imagine, folks, Matt, Noel, Dylan, and myself are extremely sarcastic whenever we say things like this.
Yep. And speaking of things that sound sarcastic, let's jump to a quote here from someone named Uthmeyer. Uthmeyer is the Attorney General of Florida. People call him Jim, James Uthmeyer. He said that this is virtually an abandoned facility, and it'll only take about 30 to 60 days to build the thing out of the existing structures that exist there. And he said it's going to hold around 1,000 people. Yeah.
Temporarily.
Yeah, and here's the big quotation. Quote, "If people get out, there's not much waiting for them other than alligators and pythons. Nowhere to go, nowhere to hide." Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Rough. It's like some Hunger Games type stuff.
It really is. It's really messed up stuff. It hurts your heart, your body, everything. It hurts. It's just not being good to other human beings. Speaking of stuff that's not good for human beings, because all of this, presents major existential dread, let's jump to the moon and asteroids.
Finally.
Woo! Jump into another British paper here, The Guardian. We love The Guardian. Giant asteroid could crash into moon in 2032, firing debris towards Earth.
Good.
Good.
I'm doing the old grumpy cat meme. I get a headache with all the massive conspiratorial injustice in Florida, and so now I'm kind of pro asteroid. Honestly,
you're a real doom bringer today, Matthew.
Yes. Well, I don't mean to be. These are strange.
It just is what it is. Yes, sir.
Again, these are just news stories that pop out in pretty prominent places, right?
Right.
So all of us, if we're paying attention to the news, everything you talked about in the previous segment, Ben, we got to put all that through our heads. We got to put all of this stuff through our heads and then just keep living like, the groceries need to be got. I'm sorry. I can't speak anymore.
Millions of people are dying, but let's make sure to answer that email from marketing.
And I think that's absolutely true. But it's also sort of the nature of humanity and the world, right? There's always insane stuff going on everywhere. And if it's not directly on people's doorsteps, it's pretty easy to put on blinders to it. So I just,
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
The way I've said in the past, and I like to see this whenever we're helping people to exercise empathy. It's crucial to remember that the world is ending for someone at every second, every juncture, and we hope everybody makes it through this show. Let me go check the sky real quick. What's up with this asteroid?
Okay, the asteroid, you don't need to be too worried about this thing. You might remember it. Its name is 2024 YR4. Now, I think it was earlier this year, as well as a little bit last year, there was talk of this, quote, city killer asteroid that is fairly large. When it was discovered to have roughly a 3% chance of colliding with Earth, there was a whole thing that happened planetarily with the humans who work on spacecraft, people who work in rocketry, and people who work in observatories, attempting to find a way to prevent a collision, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say that tiny little 3% chance, we are somehow actually in that window. And how do we make this thing not hit Earth, or at least reduce the potential impact that it's going to have on the planet? It was a whole big deal. Then, earlier this year, the chances were reduced from 3% down to 0.0017% chance of this thing colliding with Earth. And then the asteroid made its way around the sun because it orbits the sun, and it got out of view. So things like James Webb Telescope can't get a really good picture of it anymore. Observations and calculations can't be done in the same way. So there's another group of folks who came through, some researchers from a couple of different Canadian universities, who were looking at it and looking to see if it could potentially impact the moon. And they put through, a bunch of different scenarios with the orbit on how it could collide with the moon, what it would look like. And they found that there is a very, very small likelihood, that this asteroid will collide with the moon. And then they thought, well, what would that actually look like? What would happen on the moon if a city killer asteroid strikes it? Could it change the moon's course just slightly enough to have an effect on Earth? No, probably not. But it would create a giant crater on the moon, which would have ejecta, a lot of stuff flying off of the surface of the moon. In those scenarios, how many would be Earth-facing? How much ejecta and debris would fly at the Earth? They did all these calculations. They did find that it's mostly teeny tiny debris that would be heading towards Earth. If, again, very small percent chance that this could happen. But if it happens, it would be like shooting out billions of teeny tiny little bullets that will just burn up in the atmosphere if they do, in fact, impact Earth. But there is a potential for them to strike satellites and things that are in orbit above the Earth before they burn up.
By far the more salient concern, right? We already know that Earth is, how do we portray it brutally and accurately in previous episodes and conversations? If you are an extraterrestrial or a non-human intelligence and you happen to pass by this solar system, Earth will stand out because it looks like the bad house in the neighborhood. It's already surrounded by junk. There's a lot of stuff to hit. You know what I mean? There are a bunch of cars on their proverbial cinder blocks.
Some of them are on fire.
Yeah. Right, on fire. Some of them are in slowly decaying orbit. This will, in the scenario that these researchers are describing, this will create a situation where it may be virtually impossible to launch out from the Terran surface.
Yes, because some of the debris would act as projectiles, right? Like hitting the metal objects up there, causing havoc. But others would just get caught in the orbit of the Earth. And now we've got a bunch of the moon orbiting around our planet, right? Doing the same thing, Ben, you're talking about, just clogging up all the places where you can either get out if you're shooting a rocket out or put another satellite up. It's really creepy because they estimate there'd be roughly a 1 kilometer in diameter crater that would be created, and that would produce millions of kilograms of the surface of the moon shooting out at us. It is really scary. Again, it is a teeny tiny percent chance that this could happen. Okay.
So shout out to everybody who plays scratcher lottery tickets. You know what I mean? Today may be the day.
It might be the day. And you can read all about that in The Guardian, by the way. And if you are getting a scratch off lottery ticket, if you are thinking about probabilities, you are thinking about ways that the earth could end, that you could die, all that stuff. Well, here's a terrifying story out of Florida. And it speaks to all of this stuff. It's from The Guardian as well. Man on honeymoon dies after being struck by lightning on a Florida beach. Already, it's a terrifying and tragic story. This is a 29-year-old man named Jake that got struck by lightning on New Smyrna Beach in Florida. Here's the part that's kind of freaky. He was just, waiting in the water there on the beach. There's a blue sky above him. There's a thunderstorm out far in the distance that's occurring where, where you can hear the thunder, but you're not even really noticing much of the lightning. It's not that big a deal. It's out in the distance.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
He's standing there in the water. Somehow, a lightning strike hits him standing on that beach from that storm that is miles away. And he is taken to the hospital and he passes away. It's just a really scary thing to think about. There's that old adage that, I don't know if you guys remember hearing this at like a public pool or something, or maybe a meteorologist saying it on TV, this concept of when the thunder roars, go indoors. It's something that we used to repeat all the time, especially when we were doing like marching band and when we were out on a field, like a big open field doing stuff. The concept is if you can hear the thunder, you need to get to shelter, because just the fact that the sound can travel to your location means that the light and the energy can also be transferred all the way to your location.
And much more quickly.
Yes. And without warning, too. Sorry to bring that up, guys. I'm being a downer again. Next time I'm bringing some happy news.
You're not a downer.
I tried to interject earlier, and then I was like, oh, never mind. I just wanted to mention, if you want a kind of more lighthearted / action adventure romp version of what's going on with the moon, check out the movie Moonfall, which is about a potential disaster involving the moon leaving its orbit and potentially having some secrecy surrounding what actually is the moon. So there you go.
And if you love books like we do, please check out the phenomenal story Seven Eves. It's a novel by just a fantastic author named Stevenson, and the first line is one of my favorites in most of Western literature. It starts with, I kid you not, the first line is something like, "For no apparent reason, the moon exploded."
There you go.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's dope, dude. It's so good. I wish people would adapt some of that guy's work, but we're missing the point. Shout out to everybody who instantly thought of the film Powder, instantly thought of, oldie songs like Lightning Strike Me Again. People can survive being struck by lightning, but it is not a thing that you want to purposely do, because your odds of survival are super not great. And I think one of the intertwining narratives in the show overall here is that things can happen suddenly and quite quickly in a way that disallows preparation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Maybe the message is be prepared, but don't let that be your primary focus, right? Be in the moment and be prepared. But yeah, come on. Can't get too caught up on it. There's a 1 in 15,000 chance that you will be struck by lightning if you live to be 80 years.
Also, as a consummate optimistic nihilist, please note the odds that Matt just gave us are higher than winning the Powerball.
Way higher. Like so much higher. Yeah. Hey, guys, weirdly enough, 2 golfers were also struck by lightning in that same place in New Smyrna Beach on that same day. They survived because it was an indirect strike, not in the same way as Jake's unfortunate strike. All right. That's it for me, guys. Be right back after a word from our sponsors.
And we're back. And Ben, this one's for you, buddy. Remember the Police Academy movies you're so fond of?
What?
Oh my gosh, Buckaroo, you thought of me? What's going on?
Well, I'll tell you. You've heard of the Second City storied improv comedy organization in Chicago?
Yeah.
Of course, we all have. Big fans.
We caught a show there.
We did catch a show there, and it's produced some incredibly talented folks and kind of been a sort of a proving ground for SNL performers over the years. Of course, it also had its own TV series, I think, way back in the day as well. And yes, we did see an excellent improv comedy show. The improv comedy, of course, can either be the best thing you've ever seen in your life or the most cringeworthy thing you've ever seen in your life. And Second City is always the former, in my opinion. Well, they are doing a thing. Apparently, they've always had a bit of an outreach wing, kind of. Second City Works is what it's called, where they do sort of community betterment projects. And this new initiative that they are participating in involves teaching improv classes to police chiefs and police personnel from across the country. It is a joint venture between Second City and the University of Chicago's Crime Labs Policing Leadership Academy. Okay, sorry if I bait and switched a little bit there. This isn't actually Police Academy, the movie, but it is a combination of policing and comedy. And we've all certainly perhaps heard of improv classes being used as team building exercises by corporations and stuff like that. And we've often threatened to take some improv classes together, the three of us. And I hope that threat remains. I'd very much like to do it. But I am fascinated as to how the skills involved in doing improv comedy could in fact benefit leaders in police organizations. I mean, it's easy to sort of poo-poo something like this as being a bit of a headline-grabbing kind of publicity stunt, in a time.
Would we say performative?
100%, we might say performative, improvisational even. In a time where the reputation of policing organizations have been suffering, and rightfully so, you could kind of take a bit of a cynical view of this and say that there's nothing to it, that it really is just a way of sort of deflecting some of the, let's just call it what it is, downright atrocities that many police organizations have been guilty of across the country. Maybe atrocities is too strong a word, but at the very least injustices, right? So let's just go into what the program actually is. Kelly Leonard, who's the president of Creative Strategy, Innovation, and Business Development at the Second City, called it Yoga for Social Skills. And there's a good article in the AP that is actually quite in depth. And again, one could look at the headline and maybe even give the AP a bit of a hard time for making this kind of feel-good type piece. Comedy and crime fighting join forces for police learning leadership skills, and images of like folks laughing and yucking it up and having a good time. And again, I'm trying not to take the cynical view here, but just wanted to kind of address both sides. What we are trying to do, she says, is get you to listen to the end sentence, Kelly Leonard says, as she wraps up an improvisational exercise involving, you're probably familiar with this, Ben, where participants have to say the next word based on what the previous participant said. So it's sort of like an Exquisite Corpse type game, but with wordplay. What we're trying to do, she says, is get you to listen to the end of the sentence. If my arm was a sentence, when do most people stop listening? Always the elbow. But then you're missing everything that goes after, and sometimes that's critical information. So I'm going to stop there and just say, I can see how these skills, if truly taken to heart and treated, with respect and taken seriously, could help improve communication. Because a lot of these things are top-down kind of issues, right? So you've got like leadership in place in some of these police organizations, and that, of course, filters down to the folks who are actually on the street. So, having a little bit more ability to communicate properly and hear different sides of an issue, and also maybe having a little bit more perspective on some things could well trickle down in a positive way that could not only help improve communication with folks on the street dealing with, certain situations that arise, but it also could potentially reduce the kinds of situations that seem to stem, often tragic situations that seem to stem from reacting too quickly, mistaking something, like, for example, someone being mistaken as having a weapon and being fired upon, et cetera, and just maybe creating a little more of an environment where people are paying attention to others as opposed to having preconceived notions on what is happening. I'm rambling a little bit, guys. It's a little bit of a tricky situation, Ben, and I know that you're fascinated by this, and you have probably the most improv background of any of us. But what do you guys think? Publicity stunt or potentially game-changing partnership?
Partnership is a tricky word. You see how I'm playing the game already?
I do. That's exactly right.
I think you nailed it there, Noel. I wouldn't call that rambling nor word salad. As you noted, I specifically am on record for a number of years arguing that everybody should, across industries, across demographics and cultures, take some sort of basic improv hangout, because 1, it's fun. 2, it makes you a better listener. And 3, especially if it is if it is in the remit of your job, then your company or your corporate overlords will pay for it. That being said, I do want to go on record apologizing for that time I talked with a venture capitalist about improv, and then we all had to do it at our job. Do you remember that?
Vaguely, I do. But again, to that point, I mean, this is definitely a thing that is used as team building and as communication, kind of leadership training in corporations. And even then, it sometimes feels like a bit of a, hey, we're going to have fun today with the improv guys. You know?
Bit insincere at times.
It does feel that way. But yeah, that's why I'm on the fence about it.
Yeah, but you nailed it, though, I would think, with the point that there are serious, we said top down, let's call it systemic. There's serious systemic issues with the way that the concept of rule of law is interpreted and deployed and actioned here in the United States and the U.S. People in the U.S. hate to hear it, but you're not unique nor special in that respect, right? There are problems all the world round. And so perhaps in step with things like having mental health specialists on call instead of folks who are just having to be first responders, not trained in how to interact in those situations, the improv stuff can help. I would say if we're being positive about it, well, if we're being negative, as you said, artificial, performative, insincere, good headline. If we're being positive, then we would say every little bit helps. When there's a serious problem, right? When the boat is sinking, it can feel foolish to be the guy with a cup, just like scooping water and throwing it out, but it does help, even if it's a little bit.
I do agree, and I just want to, Matt, I just want to say this, and then want to hear what you have to say. One of the quotes from a captain from Philadelphia about the program, I think is interesting. He said, the big thing for me was thinking about the things we allow to happen because they've been that way before us, and the ways we can change the culture of our district by changing the thinking around why we do things, which again does sound a little bit like a PR line, and like it all sounds well and good, but I'd love to see more robust data on whether these kinds of programs actually work. Last thing, the crime lab folks say they've actually done some digging into this very thing. They found that district and precinct captains have the largest potential impact on their colleagues, despite often receiving little leadership training for the job. So that's a point that could be improved upon first thing. A precinct could have high marks for morale, community relationships, or be making a dent in crime numbers. But if the captain changes, those gains could plummet. Researchers found even in the community, the officers and everything else stayed the same. So yeah, I don't know, Matt, you've been quiet on this one. I'm curious to hear, if you think I'm maybe being too hard on it or not hard enough, or how you feel.
Well, that was going to be my question. I'd like to know the real reasoning behind having the captains take the courses rather than people who are actually going to be interacting with human beings, while on patrol or something. I think that, I don't know. I haven't done the research. There's obviously some metrics there that have been looked at before making the decision to take the captains in and teach them the improv classes. I think the gaining of empathy is one of the things that improv can teach you to do, like, or not gaining of empathy, but the practice of
Putting
empathy
yourself inside the
moment,
other person's
right?
perspective to a degree. Yes, 100%.
Or at least that thing, Ben, you're talking about listening, but we're really like actually listening to somebody and then responding within certain parameters, right? There's rules to improv where you've got to keep the game going, which is, you have to have a certain level of positivity and playfulness too, which is nice because you're unlocking some of the inner child stuff as well. They say that stuff about the captains. I just don't see it as something that the captains maybe would benefit the most from, but I just don't know.
Yeah, arguably to interject here,
Yes,
being at the point in your career when you attain the rank of captain means that you already have some rhetorical, conversational, interpersonal acumen. So I completely agree with Matt's point on like it goes back to what you were saying, Noel, the training, right? Mm-hmm. You can vilify people for being in situations that they were not prepared for. They were not trained to do that, right? Like to Matt's earlier example, there's a very small amount of people on Earth who are trained and prepared for sudden lightning strikes. It's just not a thing that comes up, like my earlier example about
and again. Sorry,
wrestling alligators. You know what I mean? We've got a nice through line here. I love the point that you make too about data. Do you see, Noel, this as becoming something that might be replicated in other parts of the country, or is it dependent upon?
There are folks from all over the country participating, like even in Canada, that have participated in this program. So the jury is perhaps out in terms of real hard data on whether this actually improves crime rates or reduces negative interactions between police and the public or citizens. I will say that I think it's funny if we're talking about comedy and police, the show what's it called? Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and in many other examples of police stations depicted in pop culture, the chief or the captain is the most humorless character in the show. He is the absolute straight man, and that creates a lot of laughs, and it's a great role for folks to bounce off all the wackiness of Andy Samberg's character and all of his colleagues. But the captain on the show does not get the joke most of the time. And that is usually the case when you see captains depicted. They're usually very hard-nosed, very aggressive, and very humorless. And so I do wonder if perhaps injecting a little bit more levity and making them listen a little bit more and improving communication and yes-anding a little bit could potentially have a benefit from the top on down to the street level. So
well said. Also, please, folks, if you're listening, don't get into stand-up.
It's a painful life.
Unless you're really, really good at it.
Yeah.
Like her buddy Sarah.
But then you have to be bad for so long before you become good.
And you have to be so tough. Pickle. You have to not be sensitive. And then I say that, but then I know there's a lot of folks that push and make it through. And every heckle and every criticism absolutely hurts. So no matter what they might say.
Yeah. We love stand-up. We love stand-up comedy. We love the high art of humor, empathy, and wordplay. And so I guess I should say, at least I'm mainly joking when I tell people not to get into stand-up. It's an investment of time. It's like getting a pilot license. It will take longer than you think. With that being said, shout out to our colleague, Sarah, who is just
Sarah B. France.
Yeah, on stand-up.
Up and comer.
She's killing it, man.
She's really doing great. She's very funny, and we've always liked her, even before she went down that path. And we wish her the best and hope to catch one of her sets out there in Los Angeles very soon. I looked at the time, and I was like, geez, I've gone long. But then I realized that I was last today. I don't usually go last. So I will just briefly mention two other stories. One, the headline says it all. One of Putin's cannibal soldiers killed comrade to eat him for 2 weeks. Russian soldier ate comrade's body for 2 weeks to survive, then died. That is according to an intercepted phone call by Ukraine between two Russian soldiers, reportedly revealing the incident. I'm just going to read the quick and dirty about this one from Kronen Zeitung, I believe a German paper. In the ranks of the Russian armed forces, it's likely to be more and more horrifying. Now it seems that a soldier has eaten his comrade for several weeks. The most recent conversation intercepted by Ukrainian intelligence personnel is a real crime novel. The Ukrainian military intelligence service is shocked in a statement. Russians would conduct cannibalism against each other. The translation here is making for some clunky reading here, but let me see if I can find one other source that shed a little bit more light on this. And we don't love the New York Post always, but they've collated a lot of different sources relatively reasonably here. Russian soldiers eats comrade in a twisted attempt to survive Ukraine war report. A Russian soldier on the front lines in Ukraine murdered his comrade and ate the corpse to survive the grim wartime conditions, only to end up dying anyway. According to Kiev's military intelligence, a call between two Russian soldiers who share the jaw-dropping story of the cannibalistic Brelok, who killed his countryman Foma, was allegedly intercepted by Ukraine's main directorate of intelligence. The quote here, I'm just going to read it. F***ing hell, Brelok ate him. F*** me. Nobody went anywhere. Brelok took him out and then ate him for 2 weeks. Yikes. Sorry, I said I was going to be bringing the joy in this segment. No way. Holy my bald skull. Was Brelok really found as a 200? The other person replied, using Soviet-era slang for a soldier found killed in action. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, not trying to demonize Russian soldiers here. It just is the kind of thing that you just hear about so infrequently, and it just really does cast such a pall over what is already a horrific situation over there, you know? So I just thought it was worth mentioning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also, folks, check out our earlier episodes on cannibalism. It's always been at best, a short-term solution. You cannot survive for a long time on human flesh if you are yourself human. It leads to something called rabbit starvation. We are very fun at parties.
Yup. But let's end on a positive note, or at least an interesting note. There's apparently a new blood type that's been discovered. Scientists have identified a new blood group, and it is the world's rarest. A French woman from the Caribbean island of Guadeloupe, which is an island under French control, has been identified as the only known carrier of a new blood type, which is being called Guada negative. 15 years ago, during routine tests ahead of a surgery, her blood was tested and determined to have contained some sort of mutation. And so the French blood establishment has been looking into it ever since. And now they're saying this. The EFS has just discovered the 48th blood group system in the world. This discovery was officially recognized in early June in Milan by the International Society of Blood Transfusion. The interesting part here, her genome was analyzed in its entirety using high throughput DNA sequencing, which highlighted this genetic mutation. She is the only person in the world who is compatible with herself, said Thierry Piard, a medical biologist at that organization who was involved in the discovery, and described it as being very unusual, or the antibody in any case. So I'm not sure what this does for humanity, but it is interesting. And the fact that she is her only potential blood donor is not super great for this person, given a situation that would require a transfusion.
New ingredients, same great taste, right?
Exactly.
And
new blood. Yeah.
Shout out, Matt, I thought of you reading the story when Noel brought it to us, because Guada negative sounds like a sick new flavor of Monster Energy.
Oh my God! Remember Jasta with guarana?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, Guada negative.
Yeah,
love that.
Yeah, in that situation, genuinely, would you go and have to set up some kind of private donation or something to where you donate your own blood to be stored so that it could be used in the event of an emergency?
Family members
come up. Yeah. Well, I don't know if family members though would work. I think
it depends, right?
It does seem to be that it is exclusive to this individual because of a mutation. So it's not. It would not work. Family members would not be able to donate. So I think Matt's making a good point. It's not addressed in any of the reporting that I read. The name Guada negative, however, does refer to the island where the patient comes from, and it is a phonetic, translation of that. And while blood types are one thing, there are many different blood groups, and they have been identified and continue to be identified due to the advent and escalation of DNA sequencing. So new blood groups are being discovered all the time. However, new blood types are exceedingly rare.
But there have been previous discoveries of rare, let's call them limited edition blood types in the past.
I think that's right, Ben.
Yeah, for any fan of Guinness Book of World Records or, consumption of blood, there are notable cases. To your question, Noel, because you asked an excellent question, what does this mean? How does this apply? It teaches us something similar to what you're asking, Matt. It teaches us the importance of understanding.
Storing our own blood.
Our own blood bags.
Keep it. No, we talked about it off air, and we're going to keep it because you should. Or send it to us. Send us your blood. Why? Oh, okay. No, sidetracking real quick, just since we're at the end here. Why does everybody want blood donations? Why aren't people just, reaching out and cold calling you and saying, hey, do you want some blood?
I mean, would be nice. I will say that there's a really interesting point that is made, and maybe it's obvious, but I just do want to bring this up in the Smithsonian Magazine piece about this. It is European doctors who've been responsible for many innovations in medicine and medical science who first began to attempt doing blood transfusions in the 1600s and just couldn't figure out why things often went so poorly. I mean, blood is blood, right? But then Carl Landsteiner in the early 1900s discovered that blood has types and groups. The discovery of blood groups, according to the Nobel Prize Twitter account, completely changed the view on blood transfusions, and it didn't take long before the first successful attempts were made. You love to see that. That's
you haven't thought of the antigens.
What an aha moment, right? Like, why is everyone dying? It seems like it would work. Can you imagine being that person and just only wanting to help and continually running up against that problem and being absolutely frustrated, just banging your head against a wall and not knowing what to do? And then
we used to do it with pigs
moment.
And dogs.
That's true. But I think there were definitely some disastrous human cases as well.
Yeah. We'll call them areas of opportunity.
Guys, now I'm looking at objects around the room and just thinking, like, how much blood could I fit in this Pringles can? And would it store?
Let's find out.
And check out Stuff of Genius for the difference between storing what we call whole blood, storing plasma. Check out our episode on the Factor 8 scandal, which shows us just how important blood donation remains in modern evenings and how dangerous it can become when we don't conduct science like this. So thank you very much, Noel, for bringing this to the fore. With so much going on, it's easy to miss a lot of astonishing breakthroughs and discoveries, which is why we do Strange News.
Indeed. That's all we've got for today's episode. But man, how can people get in touch with us, you may ask?
Oh my gosh, Noel, have you heard... what about the internet? That's still a thing, right?
Well, they may as well while they're already on there listening to podcasts. You can find us at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook with our Facebook group. Here's where it gets crazy on X, FKA Twitter, and on YouTube, where we have video content galore for your perusing enjoyment on Instagram and TikTok. However, we're Conspiracy Stuff Show.
We also have a phone number. It is 1-833-STDWYTK. When you call in, give yourself a cool nickname and let us know in the message if we can use your name and message on the air. If you want to send us an email, why not do that? We are
the entities that read each piece of correspondence we receive. Be well aware, yet unafraid. Sometimes the void writes back. Hip us to your favorite stories, your personal anecdotes, and, let us know about your blood. Nothing weird. Conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.